Hi, my name is Bronwyn Meehan and I'm from Spineless Wonders. Moya was a wonderful, long-time supporter of Spineless Wonders. Back in 2013, when we were still a fledgling outfit, she had this to say about us. This press represents what is new, innovative and utterly fab in contemporary Australian publishing in the 21st century. We, in turn, were enormously proud to publish and showcase Moya's innovative prose poems in many of our anthologies. Since 2012, we have published prose poem and microfiction anthologies annually as part of the Joanne Burns Microlit Award, and Moya's work has appeared in many of these publications. In 2012, Moya was among a select group of established writers of experimental prose invited to appear in our very first microlit anthology called Small Wonder. Moya very kindly provided us with 3 pieces from her vast portfolio. They reflect her deeply held concern for the environment, her feminist critique, as well as her willingness to share her personal reflections, all preoccupations which imbue much of her writing, and they demonstrate her virtuosity and playfulness as a writer. In an interview for our blog, The Column, Moya said, "I'm very conscious of eco-criticism or an ecological point of view in literature because of the crisis in climate and environment. Eco-criticism is a rising genre in the 21st century. I wanted to try my hand at it in Slippery as a Fish. I also adore the prose poem for its intensity and brevity, for its narrative and poetic language. Travelling east to west is my attempt to make a prose poem from an old travel diary." The final piece, Australia Terra Omnium, inspired by Murray Bale, is a list that celebrates Australia's plurality and diversity. When we called out for reflections on Australian culture for the anthology Stone Crows and Australian Icons, Moya submitted Arts and Craft at the Agricultural Show, demonstrating that we can view our traditions with both affection as well as wry insult. I meant insight. For the anthology Writing to the Edge, Moya mined family, life, her memories growing up in Australia in the 50s, in the pieces Family Regiment and On the Ironing Board. Many pieces were selected by our senior editor, Cassandra Atherton, who has recorded this tribute.
Hi, my name's Cassandra Atherton, and I really wanted to say a few words about Moya. I came to know her through Spineless Wonders and enjoyed reading her flash fiction every year, which was incredibly inspiring, often very witty, always unique, always with the Moya voice that I always have in my head when I think about her writing. Moya was an extraordinary poet, scholar, and human being, and I count myself lucky to have known her. I have 2 quick things to say. In doing research for an anthology of Australian prose poetry, I found her feminist insights groundbreaking. She stated, "The best exemplary practitioners of the prose poem to be found anywhere at any time are among contemporary Australian women writers." And I'd love to read her prose poem from this collection based on native sarsaparilla. Shrunken Spanish olives with green snuck in out of place, dented aniseed balls to blacken tongue and teeth, but no teeth chippers here, rather they sedate and anti-spasm. Drying red wine grapes, or they could just be currants, or Pluto blue balls on a Mars brown bramble, a rosy ring, a star attenuation, a prolonged spiral, we all hold hands. Or black-capped synchronized swimmers as non-drupaceous vivacious, funereal black becoming cocktail hour frock, communities, classes in their holding together via vine stem and string or leg arm spiral hold, their pond lily leaf pontoons, motherships, always accessed, and ring-string anchors alongside circular-stemmed airy, spinning, dervish, dancing, altering favourably the course of any ailing. Restoring. Restoring. I'll miss you, Moya.
In 2019, we were honoured that Moya judged the Carmel Bird Digital Literary Award, in which, after assessing many and varied 30,000-word manuscripts, she selected 3 works which went on to be published as digital collections. As well as appearing in our print publications, Moya was always delighted to have her work adapted into multiple formats.
Hi, I'm Moya Costello, and my microlit is Stained. You could do a satire where Lady Macbeth stalks supermarket shelves for stain remover. Or you could be serious, where Stained implies the haunting of Australia through its lack of full recognition of prior Aboriginal ownership. A house could be haunted by moving and disappearing figures, stained by spider poo and batshit. Clothing and linen stained by rust or red soil. The house stained by flood marks or mould from heat and excessive moisture. As in the subtropics, think of an old wooden Queenslander house. Thanks for considering Stained, and best wishes for filmmaking.
She relished the opportunity to collaborate with artists, actors, composers, and filmmakers.
Matilda. Tilda found herself unexpectedly and inconsolably nomadic. She had thought of herself as a home girl, the girl who loved coming home. She travelled for work. Some jobs were like that. They required you to be mobile. They required you to be workhorses. In the world at large, there were travellers who willingly left home and refugees who fearfully lost home. There were whole land sites being taken over by rising water, by usurping oceans. In the Pacific, the Indian, land edges were rapidly disappearing. Soft edges were falling away as the oceanic waters lapped thirstily, siren-like in their desiring grasp, in their liquid tug and pull. Populated islands were going under, amid war and drought, famine, fire and flood. Whole nations were migrating. Matilda. As a child, Matilda pondered her name, an eccentric sobriquet, a curiosity. In her country's context, Australia, Matilda meant swaggy, carrying one's sleeping arrangements, but really all of one's belongings on the road. So Tilda flew off the beaten track, a misfired arrow. She was bound for journeying, wandering off, losing her way and having to find it again. As an anthropogenic being, she would have to face nomadism as an adaptation to change.
And she was not averse to playing her part in performances online. It is hard to think of experimental prose poetry and microlit in Australia without Moya Costello being part of it or cheering it on enthusiastically. We not only admired her writing, but we were charmed and entertained by her wit and playfulness. We will miss Moya greatly. We'll end this tribute with Moya's own tribute to the New South Wales northern rivers.
Rain in the northern rivers. In the season of thunderstorms, clouds were travelling curiosities, eccentric characters passing through, moving on. Vagabonds, itinerants, swaggies, carnies, troubadours. Sometimes rain fell like fury, the gods relentless in their punishment of humans. The morning air was normally blue and bright, but if the forecast was for storms and strong winds, by late afternoon things had stilled in that frightening way at the edge of a precipice overlooking chaos. The air darkened, the wind seized up, thunder rumbled low. Once wispy clouds coalesced. There was the thickening cloud with a luminous green underbelly, the blue-green ultramarine overcolour of Antarctic ice. There was the overhanging cloud, biblical in proportion, with flowery white beard below a dark grey cadence. The clouds furled and rolled, big surf waves looming low in the pale grey curtain of evening sky. They stalked until bursting their bellyful of saturating rain. The rain fell, booming, in heavy banging doors of noise or like long coats or thick swirling curtains, soaking the air and land, everything dripping, the world become a liquid state. The high treetops were the only visible thing against the skyline in a drowned landscape. Sometimes the rain came down like protection, sympathy, shelter.